Well, hello everyone. Real quick, some introductions here. Thanks for joining us for this virtual open house. Wanted to take a few minutes. We know that we have some positions opening on the council in 2025, and one of the most frequently asked questions we get is tell us about these positions, tell us about the roles, tell us about the responsibilities, tell us about the work involved and kind of the benefits of volunteering. And so we're happy to take this time this afternoon and just kind of give you a little update on what's going on with the council, as well as some opportunities that we have. I want to introduce the panelists that are here with me today. Marty Bryson is the president of HR Florida. She is finishing up her reign as president. Marty, I think you're counting down days at this point. So, which is always a good, everyone jokes, they look forward to the coveted role of past president. And I think I don't want to say that I've contributed to you being excited to move into that past president role, but I might have gotten some side eye. If you've ever gotten the Marty Bryson side eye, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, you're not really trying hard enough, I think. So we'll leave that there. Also on the call is Dana Mullins, who's our president elect. Dana is moving into the president's role. We have two roles on the council that aren't open for discussion per se. In that is the president role and the past president role. Both of those are succession roles, and we'll talk about those in just a minute. And then we also have Jahane Myers, who is I think the newest addition to the EC, came on this year to fill out the treasurer role, and we're excited to kind of get into it. Thank you all for being here. Real quick before we get started, Marty, kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up in HR and how you got to this point.
Oh, well, I always tell everyone that I got into HR because I wanted free dry cleaning. That was a perk at the hotel where I worked, and they had an opening, and they're like, no, Marty, you can't have it. You're a secretary in the sales department. We need an experienced HR position. And I'm like, okay, I'll continue on what I'm doing. I like it. Well, that person who was a trained HR professional lasted about a month and a half, maybe 6 weeks. And so, being young and being hungry, I said, look, they didn't last. Why don't you give me a chance? Because I work here and I know the resort, I know the employees, I know the culture. And so I started my career in benefits and workers' comp, helping the employees of a resort. 3 different languages, Creole, Spanish, and English, and probably in that order of majority. So I have always been in the employee side of HR, really helping employees. And I think that's how I also became a volunteer leader. I have a servant heart. Someone needs help, and my helium hand rises up. Sure, I can do it. No problem. Oh, you see a challenge here. Let me fix it. Let me solve it. And so years ago, there was a need for assistance on the EC. I said, sure, I can help. Well, helping turned into almost a lifelong career of being on the EC and working on for the business of HR Florida, because HR Florida is a business. We are here to serve the HR profession. But one of the things I always tell people is that when we start talking HR Florida business, sometimes I have to take off my HR hat, because that's not the set of expertise that is needed. It is business acumen, studying contracts, making decisions of how to run this organization.
Yeah, I've often heard it said you don't choose HR chooses you. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that kind of those who enter HR thinking this is my career often find out it really is their career, or it is really not their career.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't take very long. So very cool. Dana, what brought you into HR? How did you get your start? And then how did you end up here?
Okay, so way back when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do for my career, I've always just loved what makes people tick. People are just fascinating to me. So I thought, well, what better way to understand and learn more about people is let's major in psychology. And let's go even a step further. And I want to be a psychiatrist. I want to work with people and really help them through any challenges and all the things. Well, as I was in college, I realized that I really did not like math or science, and they really did not like me. So I'm like, medical school is probably not the track for me. So what can I still use this psychology major that I'm halfway through with, and still get to work with people and in how they interact. So I decided I would take the business route, minored in business, and then went to graduate school for industrial organizational psychology. So that is how I got prepared for HR. And I guess I just made a plan. This is my career. And I got into it and I've enjoyed it. Thank goodness. And I still like, working with fascinating people and learning how we all tick and how we all interact and get along. And as far as how I got here in HR Florida, I don't have any idea. It kind of goes back to what Marty said. One, I got involved with my local chapter because I wanted to connect with other HR professionals, and I started developing relationships. And I heard about this great conference called HR Florida. So I'm like, I should probably go to this conference. So I did, and it was great. And I learned all these things, and I got to travel with some of my fellow chapter members. And in doing that, I met the president of the chapter. And I said, hey, how do you get more involved? I think I want to do more with the chapter. Next week, I had a call that said, "Do you want to be secretary on our board?" I'm like, okay. And hence my volunteer career began as a secretary on the chapter board. And that progressed to, eventually I was a chapter president. I was the conference chair for the chapter. I was a district director with HR Florida. And that just gradually led to today I'm president elect. So that's how it happens. You
Yeah,
don't.
I think math and science messed a lot of us up, but
Yeah.
it kind of has that way. You did hit a really interesting point for me.
Yeah.
One of the things that we often hear being part of the executive committee is, I don't have enough volunteers in my chapter. And one of the first questions we asked is, who have you asked? Because
Right.
oftentimes people are just waiting to be asked to join the fold. And it's as simple as
Yeah.
going, hey, have you thought about this? You're around here, you come to our meetings, you're plugged in the HR community locally. Have you thought about supporting your profession? And
Right.
oftentimes it's the ask. So thank you for mentioning that. I would
Absolutely.
like to point out nobody got any questions in advance of this call, so it should be interesting. So, hey, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up in HR and ended up here.
Absolutely. So my story is I started out in a totally different career field. I went to school for civil engineering and I stayed in that for about 12 years before I made the shift. And again, HR found me. I did not go looking for HR at all. Um, I think fortunately my father-in-law actually was in the profession and I just kind of so happened was tagging along for some workshops. He got me involved in that and the economy kind of went haywire around 2008 and so I was like, okay, do you want to kind of stick with this or do you want to do something different? So I end up getting a temp job as an HR generalist. And that's how I started my journey in HR. And my leader at that time, she basically, kind of molded me into, hey, you seem like you know how to do whatever I need you to do, but is this something that you really want to invest in? So, and I told her, yeah, I like it. So she encouraged me, one, to get involved with the local chapter. I think that's the number one key is just to get involved with the local chapter here. And again, once I got involved there and they see you coming to those meetings, that's when they suck you in. So once you're sucked in, you can't get away. I started, my first role as a volunteer, as a treasurer. So from that point on, I think after doing 2 years with as a treasurer, I kind of took a bit of a break. And then I came back as president elect and went on to president. And then also kind of similar to Dana's track, got in as a district director. And then now back on the council again as the treasurer. So again, I think, you see good people, you see that they're interested in doing more, you just suck them right in, you ask them questions and say, hey, I think you'll be good for this. So that's how I think people just kind of tap you on the shoulder and see you and say, hey, this is something that you should be involved in.
I
So we
think
need
HR Florida has been doing a really good job of matching people's interests and passions with roles that are available. We've used the volunteer interest form on the website for many years, and we all look at it and we all peruse it. And when we are looking for individuals, whether it is for a short-term micro engineering, micro a volunteering role or whether it's for a council position or a committee position, we go out and ask. So I think we do a good job of asking.
So thanks for bringing that up. I've dropped the thing there. If you go to our website, hrflorida.org, click on About Us and Volunteer Opportunities, we've got a list of all the volunteer opportunities. And there's a volunteer interest form at the bottom you can fill out and let us know you're interested. Very cool. Before we jump into the individual roles, Marty, will you tell us a little bit about the council? Like, what's the purpose of the HR Florida Council in relation to SHRM? and the local chapter, kind of the similarities and the differences.
Okay. Well, SHRM is the national organization. SHRM has the ear of the nation right now, and the CEOs of the Fortune 500 companies, they are doing the research and the analytics of what is trending in our profession, be it to workers, the workplace, or the work that is being done itself. And so they are putting together programming, they are putting together white papers, etc. Then you have at the other end the local chapters. And as Dana and Jahane both mentioned, that's where you go to meet your peers. That's where you go to network with the people that are in your community, that grassroots effort. The state council is in the middle. We are connecting those in Florida, those 28 local chapters under an umbrella of unity, and bringing them together, and then also hearing the messages that are being said by SHRM, the initiatives that they're doing, and helping to distill that into what is actionable in our state or at the local level.
Got it. So kind of the HR Florida is kind of the important function. You know, it really consolidates what's happening in the state, kind of translates up and down to make sure that everyone's involved. Dana, tonight we're specifically talking about executive committee roles. What is the executive committee and kind of what is its purpose?
Sure. So the executive committee is basically the officers of HR Florida. So you have typically on any type of board, you have your president, president-elect, treasurer, secretary. Those are your key roles. We also have on our EC, the past president and the conference director. The conference director is on the executive committee because our conference is so important to our success as a business. That is our major revenue generator, and we have to have somebody at the table that is responsible for organizing and putting on that conference. So basically, the EC, we run the business of the HR Florida Council. That's our purpose.
And we have a budget that's sometimes larger than many small businesses we work with. And so it's a lot of work. It's a lot of responsibility, and making sure we have the right folks on the team is critical. Jahane, we're also going to talk a little bit about district directors. Kind of give us the top line level of how they fit into the equation.
Sure. So I think of the district directors as being that kind of that support to those local chapters that you could be assigned to. And again, helping navigating that relationship between SHRM and HR Florida State Council. So again, helping them with any kind of issues or concerns, or just also being a knowledge base for them if they're not, either if there's, have new folks that's coming into their chapters or to their board, but being that face of HR Florida to them, and then also being that bridge to help bridge that gap between HR Florida and SHRM, or between their chapter and SHRM. So again, a good support system for that local chapter. So I think of them as just kind of an extension of their staff to kind of help support them on the needs from their membership, their board, how to even navigate within their boards, communicate within their boards, help them know what their role is, how to even do some of their roles. So again, being that support system.
And they've all been chapter presidents. So that kind of helps as well, I think. So let's start with the district director since we started there. All of you three have been district directors. Dana, tell us a little bit about the role.
Okay. Kind of what Jahane teed up, each of our district directors, and we have 10 of them across the state, and the DDs, which we affectionately call them, are responsible for 2 to 3 chapters, depending on where you are in the state. And you get to interact with your chapter presidents. You attend their chapter events, their meetings. Not all of them, but ones that you're able to attend and be there, to give guidance, to give support. Example, maybe a chapter is reworking their bylaws and they need some assistance on the best way to do that. What are the newest guidelines from SHRM? Because again, as a representative of the state council, you're also kind of the go-between the chapter and SHRM. Basically, the DD is there to support the 2 or 3 chapters that you have in any way that they need. Communicate initiatives that are going on from HR Florida as well, making sure that chapters are doing any audits that they need to do, that they are doing any communication, responding to any questions, anything that the chapters need to do to communicate with HR Florida and SHRM. But another big piece of the DD role is putting on our annual leadership conference, which we have every year in October. It's a 2-day event that is geared toward preparing incoming chapter boards, which some have brand new board members and some have very seasoned board members, but preparing them as a board, as a team, for what is expected of them in running their chapter. So the DD team, in addition to their responsibilities for the chapters they support, also put on this full-fledged 2-day conference that has about 300 attendees. One of the DDs is chosen as the leadership conference chair for 1 or 2 years, depending on what's in their bandwidth, and then everyone else is just part of the committee. Everyone has their assignments, and the better part of the year is spent planning and getting ready to execute this conference. But it is a lot of fun. Both Jahane and I have been the leadership conference chair when we were on the DD team. So yeah, it was a great experience. Learned a lot, and I encourage people to get involved in their chapters so that they can attend the leadership conference and find out what it's all about.
They're always exciting functions.
Yes.
Have some great surprises in this year. Go ahead, Marty.
We talked about HR Florida as a business. And earlier this month, we had a webinar inside HR for our summer series, and we talked about being an HR business partner. As I'm sitting here listening to all of this, it dawns on me that the district, when you're in a business, the district directors are your HR business partner. They know the operation. They have been a chapter president. They know how a chapter runs. They're not really a part of that chapter anymore, and they are working with those chapters to drive the initiatives that the company, either HR Florida or SHRM, is looking at for strategy and goals.
Nice.
That is a great analogy.
Exactly.
What's the time commitment for the district directors?
Oh gosh.
How much time on average would you spend, like both week and maybe in a month?
When we talk about time commitment and volunteer roles, I always hesitate because depending on your level of commitment, your passion, and what is needed from the chapters. Some chapters are very strong with very seasoned boards, and you may have a once a month check-in call with the president and attend a board meeting once a quarter or a chapter meeting once a quarter, and they're all good with that. But you may then have another chapter that's really struggling. Maybe it's a board of newbies and they need more support. You might be having a weekly conference call with them. You might be going to their board meetings virtually or in person on every other month. It just depends. And I think that it depends on the district director, their style, and the chapter that they support.
Now, I often see that our district directors often represent districts that they weren't necessarily members of.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think some of maybe the chapter presidents who are listening to this call may go, I know that the district director term is a 5-year term. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a 5-year term. But
Mhm.
I might know that my district director just came in the last year or two, still has a significant amount of time. But that's not necessarily a reason not to apply for a DD role.
Yeah, the DDs actually have a 2-year term with 3 1-year extensions. So they don't have to commit to 5 years. I would hate for anyone listening to this call to think, oh my goodness, I don't know what's going on in 5 years. That is way too much. It's a 2-year commitment. But to your point about in district or out of district, we would never ever assign someone in Pensacola to be the district director for the Keys because they can't support them physically.
You
We'd
sure?
all love to be the district director of the Keys and we've all put in for it, but we try to do within a reasonable travel distance.
Yeah, the district directors that have been outside of their home chapter district are just like one district over, an adjacent district. So it's very reasonable travel time and commitment.
And typically they have some tie to that district. Not always, but some. They work for a company that is statewide. So they have local offices there, or they service, they could be a consultant or a sales, and they service that area that isn't necessarily where they lived and their local chapter.
Perfect. Okay, well, let's jump into the executive committee roles. As I stated earlier, president and past president, because they're both succession roles, aren't necessarily voted on. And we traditionally, for each of our roles on the executive committee, have a 2-year commitment. Understanding life changes, sometimes there's some mid-session changes, but for the most part, we try to keep it in a 2-year cycle. We're coming up on that 2-year cycle. And so pretty much every position is up for grabs again. And so just because somebody's in it currently doesn't mean they're going to stay in it or that they're going to move to a different role within the council. So let's start. I don't want to say at the bottom because it's really not the bottom, but let's talk about conference director and kind of what that looks like, what we're looking for, kind of what the conference director can expect. And since I think I'm the only one that's been the conference director on this call, I'm just going to chime in and add some things. But from your perspective, because the executive committee is based on trust. Like we have to trust that everyone is doing what they're supposed to be doing, that they're communicating with who they're supposed to be communicating with, that they are following things so that I think conference is 30 days away from today, maybe. And so that in 30 days, we're going to be able to host close to 2,000 people for an event. And that starts with our conference director. So tell me a little bit about that role, Marty.
The conference director has to be organized. I mean, that's a logistics and an operational thing, but they also have to have a passion. They have to be willing to go outside of their comfort zone and take risks and to throw out ideas and have the EC listen to them and then help them to craft that harebrained idea into something that is going to be exciting to the attendees and also able to be executed within the constraints of what we have at the hotel. We are at resorts, so we can't have fireworks. We can't have flamethrowers. There are constraints of what we can do. I have had conference directors beneath me recommend both of those things.
When you said go above and beyond, Marty, I went above and beyond on a regular basis.
Yes, you did. And you got side eye on a regular basis. But it has to be someone that can also inspire and lead a team of volunteers volunteers to pull off a 3-day event that has, as Troy said, 2,000 attendees, vendors, an entire expo hall, attendees that are students, mid-career, and seasoned professionals, and meeting the needs of that audience.
Yeah. And of all of our roles, I think they have, they manage the largest team. I think there's 22 people on that team. And so understanding each of the things that their team is working on. If you're good with logistics and good with moving parts, understand that, I had the luxury during my time of serving as conference director during COVID. And so kind of as we rebounded from that, and what did it look like? And we collectively as a team said, we can do this.
Also knowing what our attendees want and listening to trends, because we put together a program. The conference is fun, and I talk about flamethrowers and fireworks, but we also have over 100 concurrent sessions of in-depth and trending education for our attendees.
Yeah. So if you're just starting your career versus, and that's a hard thing. I think this year they said we had over 500 submissions to go through those methodically and put a program together that services the needs of somebody who's just entering the profession, an emerging professional, or somebody who's done it for 25 years. So it's an exciting role. That one's a little bit of an outlier in that we've identified a successor, but we also are looking to potentially add to that team as positions become available. We added the conference chair role to the council, and it's a pseudo succession role in that we've identified someone and we want to give them some experience so that they don't walk into it blindly. But we do have opportunities available. So if you're interested, reach out about that. Dana, tell us a little bit about a secretary role.
Okay. The secretary role, in my opinion, is that position keeps the council organized and on track. As typical with any secretary role, minutes are a big part of it. Any meeting that we have, whether it be our weekly EC call that we have, any kind of, if we're on site somewhere and we decide we want to have an impromptu meeting, taking out that notepad or their iPad or whatever, however you take minutes, council meetings, any organized meeting that we have, there will be minutes taken so that we have a record of what was discussed in case we have to look back, which we often do, and remember some things that were talked about. Also, the secretary is responsible for the communications aspect of our council, which includes a number of publications. We have our newswire, which is an e-newsletter that goes out every month. We have a magazine, the HR Florida Review, that goes out 3 times a year. We have a blog, the HR Mouth of the South. All of those, while we have council positions that are responsible for each of those areas, they all roll up under our secretary role. And so that position coordinates and streamlines and makes sure all of our communication channels are consistent and that we're on brand, the same theme, which is very important in making sure that we keep our message out there and that we keep our brand consistent. And you know what? They even may take on the role of menus and venues when we do go off site for meetings and we have to go out to a dinner, because if we're off site, we gotta have our meals. So the secretary often coordinates reservations, times, maybe even a dress code. We don't know, whatever is important for that particular meeting.
So in addition to communications, they have the rest of council support as well. So they have analytics and innovation.
Yes.
They have the registrar roles up to the secretary.
Yes, all of the council service roles. So
awards and recognition
yes.
Up there. So the secretaries are pretty wide-ranging roles that not only keep us compliant, files all the regulatory requirements, but then also kind of keeps things moving along.
Absolutely.
From an administrative function within the council. Cool.
Right. And also, as part of the communication aspect, we have our social media presence. So we have a social media director on the council. We also have a webmaster that maintains our website. All of that, as part of the communication piece, falls up under our secretary. So yes, any type of support function for the council, the secretary corrals that effort.
Cool. Just a reminder, if anybody has any questions, drop them in the chat, and we will get to those. Jahane, you're currently serve as our treasurer. Kind of tell us a little bit about that role, and then kind of what excites you and the challenges involved in it.
Well, so I mean, of course, the treasurer is all about the money, right? So, the treasurer directs pretty much the financial aspects of the council. And, from overseeing, paying the bills, the bookkeeping piece of it, maybe coordinating with the CPA for tax preparations, or audits and all of those things. So anything from a money standpoint, the treasurer is going to have their hands in that. Probably also assist the president with the budgeting process towards the end of the year to prepare for the next year. So when you talk about budgeting, maybe also collaborating with the different conference chairs folks. The state conference is going to be a big one. Because this is my first initial one, this is going to be exciting for me to see what all the different things I'm going to have to be involved in. But again, trying to make sure that I keep an eye on what's going on from the conference standpoint, what needs to be paid or what is expected to be paid, make sure we got money in the bank to pay the bills, but just kind of keeping an eye on what's existing and what's to come. I think that's a big part of it, especially when we put on a big conference like we do. Even with the leadership conference too, keeping an eye on making sure, one, that how are we comparing with our budget? Are we staying within our budget like we actually projected? Or do we need to kind of tighten up some reins there? So again, I think you think about, just from a financial aspect, that's basically what that treasurer is directed to do. And for me, I think, again, going back to when I first started my first volunteer role, it was a treasurer. I like money. I keep the finances straight. I'm good at it. So, which, again, when I got tapped on the shoulder about this role, that was right up my alley. And I think, again, also, this is an opportunity to maybe initiate some new things within the council from a treasurer standpoint. What are some of the things that we can do that will help and enhance the role or make the role even easier? So I think that's another opportunity for this role.
Nice. One thing you didn't mention is that you also handle all of our reimbursements. So for all of our council travel, for each council member who attends to a meeting, handling all of that and keeping that straight. So thank you for doing that. It is not an easy task, and hopefully we give you the support and the help when you go, I need backup for that. We don't leave you hanging for too long. So thank you for that. I guess next would be the vice president. That's the role that I currently sit in. The vice president role is very interesting because I previously served as a conference director, an entirely different skill set, in that a conference director was all focused toward one goal, and that was producing the annual conference. The vice president of this organization, in addition to serving as support for leadership, also oversees our core leadership areas. And those are areas that the council and or SHRM has identified as focus areas that we want to make sure that we're providing adequate support and leadership to. And so we mentioned emerging professionals is one, college relations is another. Health and wellness. We know we have a wellness director, and we're one of the few chapters in the nation that have a wellness director as a core leadership area. It's kind of like herding cats, because as much as we're here to support the council, we kind of each have our own separate marching orders, you know. Kim LaMontagne, who's our wellness director, does amazing, incredible things, has interacted with many of our chapters. What else do I have? I have DE&I, I have workforce readiness, all of the things that you have in your local chapters that you would view, we have the same thing on the state. Government affairs, both at the state level and the federal level. There's a lot of moving parts when it comes to what's going on and the things that affect us on a daily basis. And we're hearing a lot of things come out of Washington, but we're also hearing things come from our networks. And how do those affect us in our day-to-day roles? And how do we as a council communicate that out to give the tools and support to our local chapters? I also get the honor of kind of helping the team with the legislative conference. Every year, we get an opportunity to go to Tallahassee. And SHRM has a quote called "Policy, Not Politics." And SHRM is very adamant that we want to be in the room where decisions are being made. And that doesn't mean I have to agree with the position of the lawmaker making the decisions, but it does mean that if I'm not in the room, my voice isn't being heard. And so we create an opportunity for our members, and anyone can come to the legislative conference, can participate and make their voice heard, not from a lobbying perspective, but from an advocacy perspective. How does this affect you in your personal life as an HR practitioner? So VP gets to do some really cool kind of out of the box things. And it is absolutely herding cats. Thank you, Marty, for that. And so hopefully some of the cats are a little older and they're easier and they just off and run. But whatever your passion is, one of the core leadership areas will be that more than likely. And so jump in and do that. That leaves kind of president-elect. I'm going to lead it up to Marty and Dana to talk about president-elect.
The president-elect role is one of understanding. They do oversee the 10 district directors, and so they are their cats are the 28 chapters, you know, and what are the chapter needs? So they're the voice of the chapters and the district directors back to the EC, but the president-elect is also getting ready to take on the leadership of this organization and following in the footsteps and constantly questioning. The environment that we are in today is not the same as it was in 2019. So why are we doing things the same way? And looking to others for that history, and then making a decision of does that history and tradition still make sense, or is it time to go in a new direction? So that's where I see the vice president. Dana, what are your thoughts being the current president-elect?
Right. Well, my first thing I was going to say is you are there to learn everything you can from the president, and you have 2 years to get yourself ready, get your mindset, and learn all you can before you take on the role. So now, you know, Marty's in that countdown. I guess I'm in the count up, if there is such a thing, to taking the reins in January. So after Troy had mentioned that there's some positions that are not reelected. Once you're elected to president-elect, you don't have to be elected ever again, because you are now in that 2-year cycle of president-elect, then president, and then past president. So while that is a key thing, and right now I'm trying to download everything I can from Marty's brain, running with the DDs and helping them plan the leadership conference is also a big part of what I do in this role. And it is so much fun and so rewarding, because I kind of get to go back to my council roots as the DD and work with the chapters. Couple of years ago, we realigned one of the CLA positions, which is membership director. We realigned membership under the president-elect because it is so in tune with the chapters, driving chapter membership, driving SHRM membership, now especially with our DMR initiative. The membership director also reports up through the president-elect on the council. And that has been, I really think, a game changer with the chapters and understanding what they need to do and what they can do to help drive membership and really understand where those numbers come from.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in a local chapter, and I've been the local chapter secretary or the treasurer or the president, vice president, president-elect. Each of us have served in the local chapter and kind of have progressed. What would you say was the biggest shock, for lack of a better word in my head at this moment, transitioning from one of those types of roles into a role at the council level?
First, I would say you had to think about that a minute.
Yeah.
What is it that you like? What is it that you want to do? And then, what you said before, ask, hey, I really enjoy, the whole aspect of awards. Our chapter had a great awards program. What do we do on the council? Is there an opportunity? Is there even such a thing? Because if you're not that exposed to the council, you may not know all the different opportunities that we have. So first, I would say figure out what it is that you love, because this is a volunteer role that you do devote a good amount of time to. So it needs to be something you enjoy doing, because that just makes it all the more rewarding.
And eases over some of the difficult times. Sometimes we put in long hours if a particular initiative or an event's coming up, or, Jahane, you're getting ready for a council meeting and need to get financial reports out. Sometimes we have to devote a little more time. And so it's always good to do it. And I think it's good to do it with people we like. And so that's a good thing too. If you're not a people person, you probably have a fun time in HR to begin with, but kind of jumping in and working with a team, there's not a stronger team. Well, we're kind of coming to the end of our time, but I did want to talk about next steps. So let me show that one more time. If you're interested in a council role, as I said, all the positions are up. We do interviews with a nominating committee at the annual conference. If you're not at the annual conference, we'll set up a time for you to meet with the nominating committee. And then the nominating committee makes their recommendations. We open it up to the entire council to vote. Everyone who gets to vote is one of us, our core leadership area chairs, our council, our core leadership directors, our council support folks, and then each of the chapters get a vote as well. And so I think we said there's 67 on the council, Marty.
Mm-hmm.
And so, those 67 people kind of collectively say, these are the people that we think can help us move the organization forward. And so if you're interested, now's the time to get your information in. Go to our website, hrflorida.org, click on About Us, and then volunteer opportunities. They're all listed there. And even some positions without that we didn't talk about tonight, we're going to talk about on a different call. But we have a lot of things to do. And as Marty said, even if you don't want to be the vice president, but you do want to serve in one of the areas that the vice president oversees, put in your interest form. If you don't want to be a full-fledged responsibility, we are still looking for some committee members to help support. We know that it's hard work doing what we do in addition to having a full-time day job, right? And so there's only so many hours in the day. And so the more hands that we kind of helping along the process will make us have a better product at the end of the day. So before I let everybody go, because I didn't see any questions come in on the chat, before I let everybody go, Marty, if you weren't in HR, what would you be doing?
If I wasn't in HR, I would be working in a laboratory. I probably would still have my job in Orlando working for TG Lee Foods and testing the milk and that comes in from the farms and the milk that goes out to the grocery stores. Quality control was one of my favorite jobs.
Nice. Dana?
Wow. I think I would do something in entertainment, not as an entertainer, but maybe, an agent or a manager, or maybe even like a journalist, reporter, or something like that. Yeah,
Nice.
I think so.
Jane?
So I would have my own dance studio. And yeah, I saw
Okay.
Dana look like that. So, yep, I would own my own dance studio and teach dance. Like, I
No,
like
us knowing Jahane really aren't surprised by that. But I bet those, who got you through school are like, she's really putting that civil engineering degree to good use. So, and
Yeah,
mine's kind
civil
of
engineer, treasurer, dancer.
ballet.
It all goes together. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say mine would kind of match Dana's a little bit. I'd be a live entertainment producer. And so I think that's kind of what being a conference director, get to merge those two together. And so that was kind of cool. So those of you who aren't connected with us on LinkedIn, I put everybody's name back up on the screen. And going to leave it there for just a second. We got a couple of comments. I think they were. So Zeal commented, is this strictly for people within Florida or the USA? So it is for those involved in a local chapter within the state of Florida. And so, but if you're not in Florida, reach out to one of us and we can connect you with a contact in your local area. We believe local chapter membership is key to both your personal growth and your professional growth, and create some opportunities there as well. So we will let you, if you need information, reach out to us. Cool. And with that, thank you to Marty, Dana, and Jahane for taking a few minutes out. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Our email addresses are just our first name dot last name at hrflorida.org. And you can find all of our information there. So until next time, if you're interested in core leadership or council support, we have another call August 15th, I believe. Nope.
Yes.
August 15th. Oh, yeah. I'm looking at April. It's been a long week and it is only Thursday. So, as we often have a saying around here, it's happy Friday Eve, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.